You know, even for a series as great as The Twilight Zone, the classic one of course, there are going to be some duds here and there, and I've covered them in another episode. But the episode I'm going to talk about today is a combination, a perfect storm, of poor audio quality, sort of bad acting, and really such a light plot that video had to literally be reused in order to pad the 22-minute time. Today, I'm talking about The Bewitchin' Pool, Season 5, Episode 36, the final episode of The Twilight Zone. Sport and Jem are sat down by their parents to talk about how the parents have decided to get divorced. The two already start off as pretty awful people by making the kids have to choose between living with mom or living with dad. Sport says that she just wants things to be the way it was, but when the parents obviously tell them that's not going to be the case, they jump into the pool and swim down. After a few seconds of them not surfacing, the father jumps in to try to find them. However, they're gone. And that's how the episode begins. It starts out with a little bit of mystery, with a pool that should be easy to see down to the bottom of, and yet these children are gone. The episode goes back to maybe a day or two earlier, perhaps even earlier than that, it's not really clear, when the father comes home. He is what I would call, even for the 60s, a cartoonish misogynist who tells the wife to get in the kitchen and make him dinner and, puts down the fact that she wants to get a job as a model. The mother is equally insufferable. She's as cartoonish as they come when it comes to being just kind of a nasty, yes, put upon woman, but also nasty in her own right, and the two of them don't seem to get along at all. In fact, on the screen, it doesn't appear that these two would ever be married in any universe whatsoever, which sort of made it hard to be involved or invested in their marriage in the first place. The marriage that is supposed to be the basis for what is about to occur. Sport is played by Mary Badham, which if you saw To Kill a Mockingbird, she was actually Scout. Sport and Scout sound extremely similar. At the same time, if you'll remember To Kill a Mockingbird, the boy's name was Jeb. In this story, it's Jem. I can see it as a nod to both the original story and also the movie where the girl plays both roles. However, it did sort of come off a little hokey that these two names are so similar. It could be considered an homage to, but I felt like it was almost ripping off the names instead of that. So Scout and Jem, trying to get away from their bickering parents, are sitting on the side of the pool, and Scout tells Jem to imagine something about the pool, and she talks about a river and animals, and they're basically using their imagination to escape what's going on in front of them. Miraculously, a boy pops up out of the water and beckons them to join him in there. He's also dressed just like Huckleberry Finn, which was what they were just talking about moments earlier. So it does make sense thematically. Now, I do want to stop and talk about really quick how horrific the overdubbing is in this episode. You need to see a couple of clips to really know what I'm talking about.
She picks the little boy up and hugs him. The little boy is happy. The lady gives the little boy a piece of chocolate cake and...
Have we been bad?
Heck no.
Well, maybe I was bad, and I didn't know it.
Oh, fish hooks, they'll stop after a while.
Hey! Want to have some fun?
Where'd you come from?
Not only was it so bad, it really took me out of this episode because I started to think that maybe there was something going on with my eyes or my ears because the girl was barely even enunciating, and yet there was this almost, sultry voice that was going on that clearly was not hers. And at the same time, Jem's actor, he was not really enunciating that well, and yet it looked like there was way more coming out of his mouth than I saw. So that kind of like cognitive dissonance threw me off. And I later found out that the audio quality in this episode was so bad because this was shot on MGM Studios, one of its properties. And the wind quality was so bad when they were shooting this that afterwards they had to stop and dub everything over. Now, sometimes that happens. I get it. The problem comes in where Mary Badham, the one who played Scout, went back to her home and it was too expensive to get her to fly back to do her lines again. So they decided to use Jane Foray. Her voice just doesn't match the girl. It sounds more like a teenager or an early 20s person is saying these lines as opposed to a 10 or 12-year-old. So it really didn't match up at all, and it just was one of the things that made this episode really bad for me. So going forward, they jump into the pool and they follow this Huckleberry Finn type character, and he helps them out of the water that they get to on the other side. And they're basically on this bank where all of these children are playing and having a great time, a generically great time. You know, it's like everyone's on the seesaw and people are throwing a ball to each other. And then there's that one kid I feel terrible for who probably got no practice trying to do the stick and hoop thing because he just failed. And I do feel bad for that child. But it's a perfect, utopia of children playing and no one fighting and everything's wonderful. They then meet Aunt T, who's inside the house.
Oh, what? Back already?
We didn't go yet. May I do that too? Me too?
It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the old lady in the shoe with all the children. But she's a very sweet, kindly old woman who starts giving them like minor tasks and chores to do around the house to give them some purpose. Chores, it actually teaches people discipline and to be a part of a community, to be a part of a family. All of that's great. But we know that this is the Twilight Zone, so there has to be something up this woman's sleeve, right? Is she a devil in hiding? Is she, some kind of entity that's going to make a deal with them, but since they're children, they don't really know what's happening? Something like that. Maybe like an old witch in the forest that's just entranced all of these children. Who knows? But while they're in Aunt T's house, they do hear their mother and father calling for them, and they have to go. When they get to the other side, their parents chastise them for not being around, and they go about their miserable day. Soon after, you see Scout making some kind of drawing or painting right next to the pool when her perpetually frowning mother comes to see where Jem is. She tells her mother that he must have gone somewhere else, and when her mother leaves, she jumps into the pool, comes out on the other side, to talk to Jem about the fact that her parents are trying to find him. Jem really does not want to leave. He's making great friends with Whit, the Huckleberry Finn type boy, and he's just loving where he is. Their mother and father have something that they want to talk about with them, and that they need to be present for it. She kind of plays it up a little bit, where she makes it sound like there's this wonderful thing that's going to happen. They're going to go on family trips together, and they're going to be, doing all of these things, and they're going to be one happy family. So I think she was telling herself that so that she could convince herself to want to talk to her parents, but she also got Jem to think this would happen too. So Jem and Scout, they go back through the water, into the pool, back to the parents, where you start to see that there is almost a mirror image of what you saw at the beginning of the episode. They're wrapped in a towel, they're wet from the pool, and the parents tell them the exact same lines that you saw in the very beginning of the episode. Now, I don't mean that they said the same lines. I mean, it literally is the same scene that you saw in the first minute of the episode, down to a T. It's not at different angles, it's not showing something new. And again, Scout and Jem are upset to hear that their parents are getting divorced. I think Scout at that time probably even feels guilty getting Jem to feel like there's something good that's about to happen. I mean, Jem didn't even want to go back. He was busy shining Aunt T's shoes. This starts to become sort of a child's sweatshop over the episode, and none of the children seem to be worried about it. Maybe that's the twist? They jump back into the pool. Their parents are kind of confused because they're yelling, Aunt T, Aunt T. They go into the pool and they don't come back up again when the father and mother start getting nervous and the father jumps in. Again, the exact same scene from the beginning. Now here, there's got to be some kind of twist there, right? Like, as dark as it might be, maybe they're at risk of drowning and he does pick up their bodies, hopefully just in time to save them. And then they realize that there really isn't an escape from the reality they're in, and they have to try to find another way to cope. While dark and while twisted, that would have been something emotionally captivating to say, I understand where you're coming from, kids, and I understand that you don't like the life you have. However, the literal end of this episode is the children are in the same place with Aunt T and the other children who are living this wonderful utopia. Poor Hoop Kid still can't get it together, and they're just doing some chores again and talking to Aunt T. And it ends off with them hearing their parents' voice very far away.
What's the matter, sport?
Thought I heard something.
Children, where are you? Please come back.
Aunt T?
Yes, I did.
So right now, we must be revealing that Aunt T is some kind of demon or entity or forcing them to work forever for her, right? No. The episode ends with the children at Aunt T's house, living happily ever after, while the miserable parents don't ever know where their children went. The episode ends with them in that sweet loving sweatshop. In all seriousness, this episode, if you can't tell, I hated it. It was horrible. This was the worst flop that I've seen in the series. And the sad part is this comes in as the last episode. So it could have gone out as like an explosion. It could have gone out on a high note and instead ends on one of the worst, probably the worst, series finales that I can think of. The overdubbing was distracting. It was poorly done. The acting was really bad. You know, children actors are, by and large, child actors are, doing their best. They were fine. The parents were awful. Not only were the characters bad, but the actor and actress who played them were really not doing anything for me. Like, they weren't making me invested in them at all. This was so light on plot that almost nothing happens for a lot of the episode. I get the going back and forth in the pool, but maybe every time they went back and forth in the pool, something could happen. Like, maybe the more they go to the other side, to Aunt T's house, maybe they could have like faded a little bit in a way, or maybe it took a lot out of them to go back and forth and they kind of have to choose between living in reality or living with Aunt T. To have that conflict would have been good too. The fact that they had to reuse literal scenes over and over and over again is also really, really disappointing. Then you have characters that, when they're at Aunt T's house, you have a situation that feels more like The Little Rascals or Leave It to Beaver than it does The Twilight Zone. It almost felt like there should be some laugh track in the background, the way that everyone's just laughing and happy, and that's all that there is. I just didn't feel anything for this episode. Now, I will give some credence to the feeling of this episode for people who maybe have gone through divorce in their own life. I did see some comments on IMDb about how this episode really did hit someone hard when they were a kid because their childhood was ruined by divorce. So I don't want to say that this episode means nothing to anyone at all. And the people who had that happen as a child, it must have been traumatic. So to have an episode speak to them in that way would probably be very powerful. I do want to give this episode a minute for that. But having said that, I'm just very sad that this is the series finale to one of, if not my favorite series of all time. With so many great episodes, Time Enough at Last, To Serve Man, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. To have an episode not even be able to pad out 22 minutes of runtime without recycling really feels either lazy or like the person who wrote it wasn't really prepared to write a full screenplay for 22 minutes. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Please make sure that you are checking out my other videos if you're interested. I do a lot about the Twilight Zone with both shorts and full-length videos. And please suggest some episodes that you would like me to discuss and to talk about in the future. Until then, I'll see you later.